For a year now, we've been reporting on questionable spending by a South suburban politician named Tiffany Henyard. But we only knew half the.
Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has become one of the most controversial political figures in the nation, with even her former supporters turning against her amid mounting allegations of corruption, excessive spending, and unethical dealings. Some critics have gone so far as to label her the most corrupt politician in America, a title that has gained traction as scandal after scandal unfolds. Initially rising to power in $202, Henyard campaigned on promises of positive change. However, her tenure quickly descended into turmoil, marred by accusations of financial mismanagement, cronyism, and unethical behavior. What began as a promising political career is now overshadowed by serious concerns over corruption. One of eyes. The most alarming allegations against Henyard is her misuse of taxpayer funds for luxury expenses, including high-end travel and lavish purchases, all while Dalton struggles with a severe financial crisis. The town's multi-million-dollar deficit has only worsened due to questionable budgetary decisions. Among the most glaring examples of her administration's mismanagement is the significant overtime pay increase granted to police officers, raising suspicions of backdoor deals and favoritism. Critics argue that Henyard's administration has been defined by unchecked spending, self-serving decisions, and a lack of transparency. Her leadership style, often described as authoritarian, has also come under scrutiny, with reports of intimidation, tactics, and retaliation against those who challenge her authority. The growing backlash from both residents and local officials has led to increasing calls for investigations into her conduct. As pressure mounts and scrutiny intensifies, Henyard finds herself at the center of a collapsing political empire. Once loyal, allies have turned against her, and frustrated constituents, disillusioned by the town's deteriorating condition, are demanding accountability. The key question now is whether she will manage to evade the consequences of her actions or if her downfall is inevitable. One thing remains clear: Dalton is in crisis, and all eyes are on Tiffany Henyard as the truth behind her controversial leadership continues to emerge.
Those officers to be on the street fighting crime, and instead we have several officers that are riding around.
Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, continues to dominate headlines as a series of new scandals surface almost every few weeks, drawing intense scrutiny from both local residents and state officials. Critics argue that her administration's lack of transparency and accountability is eroding public trust in local governance, further solidifying her status as one of the most controversial political figures in America. One of the most shocking examples of her questionable leadership came with her infamous proposal to drastically reduce the salary of any future mayor, but only if she loses re-election. This move appears to be a backup plan, acknowledging the possibility of her political downfall while attempting to protect herself. Yet, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Henyard's extravagant spending habits have sparked outrage among Dalton's residents. Reports reveal that she has spent tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars on luxurious trips, high-end accommodations, and first-class flights, all while the town struggles with a crippling financial crisis. In just 5 months, Henyard allegedly amassed a small fortune in expenses, booking stays at upscale hotels such as the Four Seasons in Atlanta and the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. However, there has been no visible benefit from these so-called official trips, and no tangible outcomes to justify the expenses. Despite growing concerns, Henyard's administration has remained silent, refusing to provide any transparency or justification for these expenditures. Chris Gonzalez, a town trustee, has been demanding answers for months, but Henyard has shown no willingness to explain her actions to the very people who elected her. Her refusal to be held accountable has only fueled suspicions that she operates with an alarming disregard for financial responsibility. If her reckless spending wasn't enough to spark public fury, the mismanagement of Dalton's police department under her leadership has added another layer to the scandal. One of the most alarming issues has been the alleged abuse of overtime payments. Some officers have reportedly earned more in overtime than their base salary, with one officer allegedly raking in over $100,000 in overtime alone, more than doubling his regular pay. These excessive payouts have raised serious concerns about fraud, favoritism, and potential misuse of taxpayer money, with critics questioning whether these funds are being funneled for political loyalty or personal gain. Speaking of loyalty, Henyard's inner circle is also under scrutiny, and no individual has drawn more controversy than her top ally, Deputy Police Chief Leo Lacy. Lacy has been one of Henyard's staunchest supporters, but his criminal record adds yet another stain to the mayor's already troubled administration. Lacy was previously indicted on charges of bankruptcy fraud, further deepening the cloud of corruption surrounding Henyard's leadership. Despite the serious allegations, Henyard has continued to stand by Lacy, fueling accusations of cronyism and self-serving political deals. Such blatant loyalty to individuals with questionable backgrounds only reinforces the narrative that Henyard's leadership is built on favoritism and personal gain, rather than the well-being of Dalton's residents. History has shown that when political figures operate with such arrogance and disregard for accountability, their downfall is inevitable, and it seems that Henyard's house of cards is beginning to collapse. Investigations into her actions are intensifying. Public outrage is growing. Even former allies are beginning to distance themselves from her, all of which spell disaster for her tenure. One of the most controversial moves Henyard has made was her decision to reappoint Leo Lacy to his position, despite a clear vote by the town board to fire him. This defiant act has ignited fresh outrage in Dalton, with both residents and board members questioning how she could so brazenly defy a legal decision. Lacy, despite being officially dismissed, has continued to show up for work, acting as if he is still in charge. This is no longer just a bureaucratic dispute. It has become a full-blown power struggle within Dalton's leadership. Rather than stepping back in the face of mounting backlash, Henyard has doubled down, portraying herself as the victim of an unfair and racially motivated attack. In her speeches, she has framed her critics as individuals trying to undermine her leadership because of her race and political stance. While she calls for unity, she simultaneously deflects from the serious accusations surrounding her administration. Henyard has attempted to shift the focus away from Lacy's scandalous reinstatement, painting it as a calculated attack by those seeking to destabilize her leadership and the town of Dalton. However, this narrative has done little to quell the frustration of residents who see it as yet another attempt to dodge responsibility. If the controversy surrounding Lacy's reappointment wasn't enough to further tarnish her reputation, Henyard's actions have also drawn the attention of former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. The Dalton board hired Lightfoot to investigate the town's finances, and her preliminary findings have painted a damning picture of Henyard's administration. Lightfoot's investigation uncovered a disturbing pattern of financial mismanagement under Henyard's leadership, with the town now drowning in millions of dollars of debt. Even more troubling, the investigation revealed instances of unreported spending and questionable credit card transactions that appear to have no legitimate connection to government business. These revelations have only deepened public frustration. Yet Henyard continues to present herself as an embattled leader under siege. Instead of taking responsibility for the growing crisis, she has repeatedly shifted blame, portraying herself as a victim rather than acknowledging the overwhelming evidence of mismanagement. As the financial situation continues to spiral out of control, residents are becoming increasingly disillusioned with a government they perceive as chaotic, secretive, and completely disconnected from their needs. Henyard's refusal to confront the severity of the situation, coupled with her repeated attempts to deflect responsibility, has left many questioning whether she is truly capable of leading Dalton out of its current crisis. Despite the mounting evidence against her, she remains defiant, convinced that she is being unfairly targeted by those seeking to undermine her. Yet, as Dalton continues to sink deeper into financial and political dysfunction, it is becoming increasingly clear that this is not just a simple political dispute. It is a glaring example of systemic failure within the town's leadership. Whether Henyard can withstand the storm remains to be seen. With the financial investigation still ongoing and public confidence continuing to erode, her leadership is under intense scrutiny. Residents are growing more frustrated with her lack of transparency and accountability. The future of Dalton hangs in the balance. The real question now is whether Henyard will finally face the consequences of her actions, or if she will manage to escape them through political maneuvering. Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The people of Dalton and the nation are watching, and they will not remain silent for long.
Make a one-day purchase of over $40,000 to Amazon. And the main thing is,
one of the most shocking revelations in recent weeks is a mysterious $1,400 charge to Amazon, an expense with no explanation or accountability. This glaring discrepancy has only added fuel to the fire of mounting concerns about Mayor Tiffany Henyard's handling of taxpayer funds. Yet, despite the growing scrutiny, she continues to project an image of success. In fact, Henyard has taken to calling herself a super mayor, boasting about taxpayer-funded events that have been widely criticized. One of the most infamous examples is the disastrous $85,000 party she threw, an event that turned out to be a complete failure. According to an investigation by Fox 32, Henyard's use of police security details for these events involved pulling officers off the streets, costing taxpayers thousands of dollars. For this particular party, Henyard even flew in R&B singer Cowley and rapper Jay Holiday, yet attendance was shockingly low. Imagine spending that much public money on a lavish event that barely anyone showed up for. It's almost unbelievable, but it perfectly illustrates how disconnected Henyard appears to be from the people she was elected to serve. And the people are not happy. Public meetings in Dalton have grown increasingly chaotic, with frustrated residents openly demanding Henyard's resignation. The outrage is palpable as citizens watch their hard-earned tax dollars wasted on extravagant spending while essential town services continue to deteriorate. The disconnect between Henyard's self-promotion and the reality of Dalton's struggles has only intensified calls for accountability.